generation network management from Micro Focus. My name is Rocky Pisto. I'm a longtime log and SIG leader focused in this particular area in network management. So I'm kind of excited about the new announcements we're going to hear about today. Our presenters today are John Kiaz. He's the manager of product marketing in the network operations management space for Micro Focus, and Brian Kaplan, product manager of network operations management in the Micro Focus arena. This is going to be a live session. It's being recorded so that all Vivid members can take a look at this thing if they can't be with us today. Kind of a neat feature that comes with this particular portal is the ability to check or ask questions in your own native tongue, your own language. You can see where the blue arrow is, where it's pointing to the U.S., but if you're dialing in from a different country and would like to ask a question, put in your country in there, and that way you can type it in your own language and we can see it in ours. This is the agenda today. Have I gone through the housekeeping? I must have. John, I guess I'm passing this on to you.
Great. Thank you so much, Rocky. I really appreciate it. Hey, on behalf of Brian, myself, and the entire Micro Focus team, thank you so much for attending this conference. Network operations management and Micro Focus have gone through so much over the last year, and we're really excited to bring it to you and answer your questions and let you know about all the great things that are happening with network management. So today, we'll talk about the company just real briefly, ITOM suite strategy, I'll cover that, and then we'll let Brian go into the product overview along with what's new, and then we'll do a wrap-up. Now, one of the big things that we're offering as part of this webinar is access to some research, including the really informative Gartner NetOps 2.0 research paper. So all of those will be provided to you at the end in a follow-up email. So look for those in your email and possibly if you have a spam folder. So let's get started. So discover the new company. Well, you know, from an internal perspective, we've been talking about Micro Focus for well more than a year now, but for many folks, right, they're still just coming to understand what is Micro Focus, where did it come from? You know, there's been so many changes, and frankly, I get a lot of customers say, "Oh, you work for HP OpenView," even though you know, we haven't been part of HP for more than 3 years, and we haven't been using the OpenView name for longer than that. But we're now part of Micro Focus, and I wanted to once again just give you a quick intro on how all of that happened. So on the right side, we have Hewlett Packard Enterprise. That was spun off of HP, right? That included all the B2B activities, and then Micro Focus, which was a company that you know, grew up building software products 40 years ago out of the UK. So we wanted to put these two great companies together. HPE spun off their software division, which includes us and the ADM and everyone else, and combined that together with the pure play software company of Micro Focus. So instead of being a small part of a huge manufacturing and hardware company, we're now a pure play software manufacturer. And you can see what happens when you combine this plus the software division, and all of a sudden we jump into this very, very powerful rank, number 7 of pure play software companies in the world. So that's us now, Micro Focus. We operate at the global scale. We've got a very strong platform and operating model, and really have a significant portfolio breadth and depth. This is really important as we work with the companies that we that we work with at a global level. They need companies that can deliver to them the solutions they need across their business. So a couple stats there: more than $4 billion in revenue. One of the top companies on the FTSE. 18,000 employees and 40,000 customers. And we had some overlap between the two companies, but what we found was very little in the same segment. So it's been a very good combination for us. That little stat down there at the bottom, 98 of the Fortune 100, pretty impressive solution. So build, sell, support, you get the idea. 5,800 software engineers and 6,000 patents. I really think that speaks for itself as to the type of infrastructure we have behind this company. And once again, it's not focused on hardware. It's 100% focused on software with software professionals who understand the business. And that is a really significant advantage to us as we move forward. And then finally, the portfolio. So when you look at us, DevOps, IT operations, cloud security, information governance, Linux, and open source, really across the board there that we have a very, very significant presence out there. And today, the one that we're really going to focus on, of course, is IT operations. And I'll mention to you that IT operations on the from the traditional Micro Focus side was a lot about mainframe solutions, but they also had IT operations solutions, and they were kind of targeted at a little lower segment than us as compared to where we're targeting, some of the largest companies in the world. But IT operations with service management, operations bridge, data center automation, and network management, all really focused on delivering to business customers what they need to manage their company. So I asked this question at our last webinar. Rocky, if you can spin up the first poll. Prior to this webinar, were you familiar with the Micro Focus HPE software spin merge? And we got love to hear if you're starting to become familiar with it, or if this is kind of the first time.
Great. So feel free to click into one of the options that John has read through here, and we'll see what the results are here in a few minutes. Not a few minutes, but in a few seconds. And the numbers are growing.
So what does it look like, Rocky, since I don't have access to that yet?
Yeah, so right now it looks like almost overwhelming. Yes, I've heard about the HPE software Micro Focus merger.
Awesome. That's what we want to hear.
Overwhelming.
Okay. If you want to push those live, we can just move on.
No, you're fine.
Okay. Great. All right. So let's talk about our suite strategy. So if you think about formerly with HP and HP software or HPE, you thought about our ITOM products as a multitude of point products that delivered a wide set of services. And that was an interesting model for us because we built integrations between them, but it was some heavy lifting. And so a couple years ago, we had a new general manager come in, a gentleman named Tom Gogan, and he's out of Apple. And he looked at this and said, how does this make sense for customers? And it was a really, really good question. And he said, we need to have new products that deliver functionality, and the customers don't have to do the heavy lifting in terms of integration. And so that's where our suite strategy was born. So instead of dozens of individual products, we concentrated our solutions into 6 suites: IT service management, hybrid cloud management, operations bridge, data center, network operations management, and data protection. So all of these are comprised of what were previously kind of core product into new products that have a broad set of functionality that are going to be much easier to deploy and manage. So that was the first step for us. And underlying all of those suites is that set of services, including orchestration and analytics, all the things that you need to make it successful. So very, very much a sea change for us in terms of delivering these products. And when we look out against our competitors, we feel like we're really in the best position to deliver to modern requirements for IT operations. And when we talk about those requirements, we talk about IT operations at the speed of DevOps. So no longer long deployment cycles, long maintenance cycles. We want to be up and running very, very quickly at the new, as DevOps is our kind of target for what we're trying to deliver to them. So one of the things that we did is we changed internally. We went from these long 6 months, 9 months, 12-month development cycles to a 3-month agile development cycle. So running sprints, multiple deliveries that we're doing throughout the period, and then finally releasing those at the end of 3 months on a time-based delivery. So instead of, where you'd see a development cycle, maybe 6 or 8 months, and then maybe get delayed a month to add new features. No, we're delivering that every 3 months. So that's an important distinction for us. And as part of that, what we realized is that although traditional deployment is important, to really move at the speed of DevOps, we had to do a new infrastructure, and that's container deployment. And so we're rebuilding all of our products and delivering them not only as legacy products and traditional deployments, but with container deployment. And that's really a big step forward. And a lot of customers say, well, I'm not really ready for containers yet. And our answer is yes, but when you understand the benefits of managing in a container environment, you will want to move forward. So that means that we have to take these large monolithic products, break them down, and into microservices, and that's what we're doing here. So a big step forward. And then the next piece is having all the capabilities around the product. So we talked about on the top right there, managing containerized apps and infrastructure using Kubernetes in order to manage that. That's a big step forward. ChatOps, another key piece for us, the ability to communicate and to use bots to address issues when you're troubleshooting. Analytics everywhere, our big data platform. That's something that really is going to be part and parcel of all the suites, and that has the data and the analytics built into it. And then finally, our very, very innovative business value dashboards, which allow you to deliver the content you need and information you need to executive level, and also build operational dashboards. So that's it for me for the time being. Please welcome Brian Kaplan, our esteemed product manager, to take you through kind of the strategy and the product updates.
Great, thanks, John. So we'll start off with the network operations management strategy itself, and in doing so, we took a look at what are the trends in networking today and what's really disrupting the market. And we found that there were 3 key areas of activity that it was happening. One is software-defined networks, and this could mean different things to different folks, but we see this as a growing trend in our customer base, in what customers are asking us to be able to support, and in seeing what the device vendors, the network infrastructure vendors themselves are doing. And as you can see from EMEA, they're acknowledging as well that that SDN is a very big disruptive technology. It's the first in networking in a very long time, in fact. The second big trend that we're seeing, and you're seeing this more and more in the headlines every day, in fact, is around security. And not just security in the sense that, oh, I want to make sure my networks are secure and things like that, but specifically there are known vulnerabilities out there in the wild that are still part of successful exploits, meaning people aren't able to actually keep up with the vulnerabilities that are out there and the patching that's required or configuration changes that are required to keep the environment secure. And then lastly, in the area of unified management, this is, we had some opinion here, and then it was validated, in fact, by Gartner, and you can see this in the NetOps 2.0 paper, which we'll make available, which is, you really need to rethink how you're performing, and it's not necessarily operating in these different silos of network responsibility, like monitoring versus configuration versus security, that these things have to come together for you to actually be able to keep up with the pace of change. For example, when I talk about software-defined networking, that's around network changes are happening very rapidly, perhaps in an automatic fashion, in fact, from controllers in SDN, and security. New vulnerabilities are happening all the time. How are you going to be able to keep up and respond to those things quickly? It's all about understanding the network state at any given moment in time and being able to automate and push out change to continue to support the network. And so when we talk to our customers, it's also further validated, right? These are similar kinds of challenges that we've heard from different customers. Not all customers have all these challenges necessarily, but they typically will have one, if not more, of these three. And obviously, the solutions, I think, are obvious. But if I cut across all of these challenges, it all comes back to speed, the need for speed, in terms of network management. How do I very rapidly keep up with the changes that SDN is doing? How do I have better response time, or ideally even better proactiveness in terms of security? And how do I actually reduce the efficiency in bouncing from one tool to the next because maybe I've bought different tools along the way, and but that, in essence, it's not obvious at first, but if you're bouncing from one tool to the next to actually troubleshoot a common problem, that's slowing you down. It's introducing latency into the troubleshooting process. And so the other thing that we're looking at is how are organizations evolving in response to these trends. And so many of the customers that we talk to today are still at the far left here, where they may have siloed specialists. These are experts, right? They know monitoring inside and out. They likely can speak, mid-speak, if you will, from a monitoring perspective, or they're very familiar with how to configure, routers or firewalls and things like that. But they're siloed, right? They're in different parts of the organization, and there's big gaps in the handoffs between these two teams, especially as you're troubleshooting things, and also certainly as you're deploying new services and benefits to the network. And so we see customers moving towards the right, where they may do some more they're still siloed, but they may do some more coordination between these teams. Further up, they may start to form virtual teams that span those silos, and they become more and more collaborative until they finally become an integrated team, right, where they're responsible for network management as a whole, and it doesn't matter anymore that you're a monitoring person versus an engineering person, for example, one who deploys the changes versus security. This should all be, a team effort in essence. And we've even spoken to customers where, depending on the part of the organization that you're talking about, you may actually exhibit more than one of these behaviors. But so this whole observation is really driving, again, towards more of a consolidated tool that can, in our case, manage the network itself. And so, when we looked at a survey that EMA did, it validates that, right? And so one of the survey results, that first one on the left there, is you have an increase in your ability to detect problems early the less tools that you have. If you have only 1 to 3 tools, for instance, managing the network versus 11 or more, well, guess what? You're more readily able to detect problems earlier, ideally before customers are even calling in, your end users are calling in to report that problem. And that shouldn't be a surprise, right? If everything's in one place, I should be faster at that troubleshooting exercise. We also saw that 39% of enterprises indicate that configuration data is the #1 source for troubleshooting workflows. I would contend that there's probably another 40% or so that would say the monitoring information is also very important. And in fact, both are equally important because you can detect and troubleshoot the problem, find out what the root cause is, say, from a monitoring perspective. You typically will actually need to understand not only the current configuration, but did something recently change in the environment to determine maybe that's all related to how this problem came about and what the root cause is, much less being able to understand, okay, once I find a problem, part of the issue is why did that problem occur? And I need to actually see what's in the configuration and say, oh, you know, this is wrong in the configuration. And that could be a recent change like I just indicated, or it could have been there all along. And now, only now is it really propagating. Maybe it's a performance issue that's degraded over time. And then the last piece is kind of supporting of the first point there, which is most of the problems, a good majority of the problems, 71% of them, can be detected early before users start reporting them when network operations has a consolidated toolkit. In essence, less tools and one that is cohesively working together. And so based on all this data, what we at Micro Focus came up with is this network operations management suite. And some of you may be familiar with this already. We introduced this in the summer of last year, and we've had a couple releases. And later here shortly, I'll be talking about what's new in the most current version of the suite. But for network operations management, it's as you can see, it's derived its capabilities from the individual products historically that many of you know about. NMI being one, providing monitoring and performance management for the network, and then network automation being the other key product, and that's providing configuration and compliance capabilities. And so if you look at what we're doing here, it's not just let's just bundle the products together and sell it as a new offering. What we're trying to do is actually bring the products even closer together than they already were, right? We already had integrations between NA and NMI. We're trying to continually collapse the products into a singular new product, network operations, so that we can deliver on new use cases and new demands that meet the challenges that we just spoke about. And so if we look at the diagram on the left, we start off with visibility. We need to understand the entire network state, network infrastructure state at any given moment. And so that means we need to make sure we have an up-to-date topology. We need to understand the health of the network at any given point. We need to know what the current configuration data is at any given point. And so we've collected all this data, and it spans the network state. It's not just these siloed pieces of information. And then what do we do next? Well, we start to do some optimization. The optimization is based on some analytics that we can do, some of which we already do today, in terms of understanding, okay, based on the data that we've collected, what's the performance on the network? Is it exceeding thresholds or normal behavior, for example? So we're doing some analytics in terms of understanding what historically has been happening. We can do capacity planning, for example, and then we could also do compliance, right? We can audit the data that we're collecting to make sure it's compliant with your, not just industry standards or government regulations, but even your own internal standards. What is your expectation of how things are configured, or what the state of the device is, or what software versions are out there based on vulnerabilities, for instance, knowing that there's, new security incidents all the time, like we just spoke about. So that's in the category of optimization. And so once we've collected this data with visibility, we've done some analysis and optimization in the second area. And then the third area is, okay, well, we need to take action. We found some performance issues. We don't have capacity in the network, or we found some compliance violations, or simply we want to deploy a new service, but we want to deploy that service knowing the current state of the network, knowing how it will fit in. But we need to be able to take action, and that's where the automation and orchestration capabilities come to play. And so we'll make this more real as we get into what's new in the NOM suite. But that's how our capabilities are spanning, and we're doing all these things across all different kinds of the network infrastructure. It doesn't make sense to only do this for, certain kinds of infrastructure. So we can support physical and virtual devices. We can get some visibility into cloud environments, for example, and then we also can support virtual, virtual overlays, legacy, and software-defined networking. We have some of those capabilities today. And then, as John indicated, as part of the overarching ITOM strategy, we're starting to deploy these capabilities on top of what we call the Container Deployment Foundation. So that's using Docker containers and using Kubernetes for orchestration. And that whole CDF, that platform, if you will, is supported for deployments on either physical gear or virtual machines, or even in the cloud. And so we can talk about that. So let's go to the next poll. Rocky, you can put the poll up, and I'll read off of here. So we're curious to know, are you currently using NNMI and or network automation? And maybe you're not using either, but we'd kind of like to get a sense of, what's the usage out there on the in the audience today.
Great. Yeah. To answer any of the points here, and it looks like it's growing. Just kind of refreshing here. A strong percentage seem to be using both the NNMI and network automation. Some are, I would say, probably, less than 50% are just using NNMI, or, less than 1% are using just network automation. But as a combined tool, we probably, that represents over 50, 60%. Still climbing.
Yeah, that's great. That's great, Rocky. So, I think those results kind of support the premise that we've had, even without us talking to customers about what the benefits are. We know a lot of you have decided, look, if I can consolidate my tool set, especially with integrated tools that span monitoring, performance management, and configuration and compliance, I know I can be more efficient in how I'm managing the network. I can reduce downtime, and I can deploy services faster. And so what we're doing with the suite strategy is essentially, let's do more of that. Let's get better at it, and let's provide additional benefits to customers. So that's great, and I appreciate that feedback. So with that said, let's get into the details of what we did in the most current version of the NOM suite, which is the 2017.11 release. We released this at the very end of November, early December of last year. And so if I move to this slide, on the right-hand side, you see these are essentially the key high-level new capabilities that we delivered in this release. And I should mention that we also have been releasing the individual point products still in line with the suite. And so we had a NA 10.40 and an NNMI 10.40 release at the same time. However, as you'll note as I go through the next slides, and even on this slide, some features that we talk about, they'll only be available in the suite because of things that we're doing architecturally, and where we think the greatest benefit will be. Some features will be available both in the suite and the individual point products, and we'll point those out as well. So we're still developing the point products as well as having new versions of the suite, but there will be some differences in terms of which features are supported or supported where. So first off is, I don't know how many on the line are familiar with business value dashboards. It's a technology that we've used originally in the OpsBridge part of the ITOM portfolio, but that's quickly becoming a component that we want to share across all of ITOM. And so the NOM suite is actually one of the first to adopt it and actually include it. As you become NOM customers, you'll get BVD, and you'll also get what I have on the screen here, which is some example network content that ships with the NOM suite. It's actually available on Marketplace today. If you're familiar with that, I think we might have a link towards the end about that. But we created some dashboards that we thought could be useful both from a risk management perspective as well as operationally. And by the way, these dashboards can be customized. You don't have to use them. You can use them out of the box as we provided them, but you can customize them. And certainly, if you're familiar with BVD, you can create your own dashboards as well. So with this network risk dashboard, we're indicated in this example that we're looking at 4 different sites. The very first row is the Sunnyvale site. I don't know how clear that is for you all, but we can say, hey, look, there are issues. There's security issues at the Sunnyvale site. And I'm looking at open risk incidents. These are things that are in the security category of incidents, for example, coming from NMI. I can look at compliance data. So these are what's the overall compliance status as reported by NA, and feeding that up into the same dashboard. So again, using monitored and configuration data collectively to get a look at security and risk. Looking at vulnerable devices. What are vulnerable devices? Those are devices that are also failing compliance policies from an NA perspective, but those policies are being delivered through our security and compliance service, where we take vendor notifications such as Cisco PCERT notices, for example, convert those into policies, and then download those policies into NA, and they relate to the common vulnerability identifiers, so CVEs. And so those are those devices and so forth. And you can, I'm not sure if everybody's muted on the line, but I'm hearing a little bit of background noise there. But you can also do drill downs. So we can say, oh, I see some problems with the Sunnyvale site. Let me do a drill down, and I can get even more data. Here's another dashboard that we've shipped with the November release. More data on security. So I can see the trend of security incidents, as you can see. I can see, based on the CVE, the vulnerabilities, how many devices are affected by a particular CVE, a particular vulnerability. I could look at unauthorized access attempts. I could look at overall security compliance. And I could also look at things like, are there configuration mismatches? Are there essentially mismatches between the startup and running configurations? How, when are configuration changes occurring? When are unauthorized access attempts occurring? And what's the trend of security violations overall? So again, these are interesting things at a high level. They could be for the executives or managers just to see what is the health of my environment. You could do drill downs, and then ultimately you can get into the product itself and do some further troubleshooting and resolve the issue. Similarly, we ship some operational dashboards, same idea. So there are some key performance indicators that we provide by default with these dashboards, with this overview dashboard that you see here. And I can see, what the node counts are. I can see generally what open incidents are. The security stuff I mentioned earlier are a subset of that. I can see the trend of configuration changes over time for the different sites. Compliant devices. And I can also, I think it's an interesting metric to look at, what's the average mean time to repair for the incidents in that particular site? How long is it on average taking me to resolve incidents? And I can also do the drill down here. Here's another dashboard that we shipped where we can show the trends, right? I could show the incident trend. I could show more details about compliant devices. I can show, for instance, as I'm backing up devices in real time with network automation, how much of those backup jobs, those snapshot jobs, are actually succeeding versus failing. It's great if I think everything's being backed up, but if there's issues, I have a communication problem, or for whatever, I have wrong login credentials, for example, I obviously want to resolve that. I want the backup graph there to be green. And as you can see, there's some other metrics there as well. But again, you can customize it. These are examples that you can do now with NOM. And we expect to provide more of this content going forward. Okay, the next thing that we did is, again, we have a lot of interesting data that spans the environment. Let's start to use it collectively so that we can reduce mean time to repair, so that we can introduce speed, as I mentioned earlier, back into the practice of network management. And so one of the things that we did, and this is a NOM suite specific feature, is take a look at the performance graphs, some of the performance metrics graphs that we show. Like as an example here, we have CPU utilization. And let's take the data that we know from a configuration perspective and overlay it. And so this graph is showing the green part of the graph is actually the CPU utilization curve over time. And that vertical blue line is what we call a configuration change indicator. That's the moment in time that a configuration change occurred. And you can see right after that configuration change occurred, that's when the graph started to spike. And that's when the CPU utilization started going all the way up to 100%. And I can hover over that, that vertical line. I can see then who made the change. I can see when the change was made, day and time. And then I could click on that blue line, and I would come to the configuration diff view for that particular device. And where's that data coming from? It's coming from network automation. And all of this is to say, let's help you draw faster conclusions as opposed to giving a bunch of information to you and you having to stitch it all together yourself to troubleshoot, right? This is specifically geared towards reducing mean time to repair. And we know that over 50%, depends on who you talk to, but it's a very high percentage of network incidents are caused by misconfigurations, even today, right? That's a very common thing that we expect to continue, but we're obviously providing different capabilities to help mitigate that and minimize that as much as possible. All right. The next thing that we've done, and this is a feature that was provided both for the suite, but also for the individual point products. In this case, this enhancement was done in NMI, and it's now supporting Cisco ACI monitoring. So this is Cisco ACI. It's their software-defined networking strategy. It generally works with, using Nexus 9000 gear together with controllers that Cisco calls the APIC. And so what we can now do is we can do discovery of the ACI fabric. And so you can see this is a view of spine switches. These are the Nexus 9000s, the two at the top, as well as all the leaf switches that are connected in the middle there. And then they're connected to the APICs, and they could very well be connected to other endpoints as well. But we're doing this discovery. We have to have that understanding of the topology, because that's generally how NNMI is doing analysis and understanding what root cause may be by understanding how things are connected to each other. And we can now get that visibility into SDN. This complements what we've already been doing on the configuration side, which is we already supported ACI in network automation. So now you have the capability to both discover, monitor, configure, and even audit ACI environments. And we'll do more, some more work in this area and expand it into like performance like that in future releases. But we have a lot of good visibility here as customers move more and more into the SDN space itself. Okay. Next up, NOM-specific feature, again, not architecture strategy of containers. So this Container Deployment Foundation, or CDF. We started containerizing the products starting in the NOM Express edition. We'll talk about what the different editions are about here shortly with John. But the Express edition, if I could just summarize here, is basically what you know is the functionality of the NNMI core itself, none of the SPIs or smart plugins, as well as the network automation core, but limited to read-only type of activities, backing up configs, running show commands, things like that. No configuration automation, no compliance automation. That's the capabilities in NOM Express, if I could summarize that. And so what you see in this diagram is the things that are in blue boxes are now Docker containers. So we're running the NNMI core, for example, in a Docker container, running NA core in a Docker container. We're running the trap service and the action service, for example, from NNMI in their own containers. The purple bordered boxes are things that are shared components. So these are being shared and not necessarily developed by the R&D team for NOM, but they're actually being developed panning ITOM itself. And so that's the other advantage of what we're doing with CDF is more and more of things that should be shared, like BVD I mentioned earlier. BVD is actually a collection of containers that we're sharing from the OpsBridge team. We didn't develop that from scratch. And so we're becoming internally more and more efficient with how we're creating features, how we're sharing those out and benefiting all different kinds of use cases. In our situation, these are network use cases. And so we'll continue to containerize other parts of the network management portfolio. The obvious things are all the smart plugins need to be containerized next. And then we'll start to do, as John alluded to, we'll start to break these monolithic containers down into smaller and smaller microservices so that we can take advantage of capabilities that are delivered from Docker or from Kubernetes, right? And that deals with installation, rolling upgrades, resiliency, scale, all those things we can take advantage of without having to start from scratch architecturally on our end. So these are just some initial benefits. This is our essentially first stab at putting NOM on CDF, but we've been working on containerization here at ITOM for the last couple of years, right? And it's just NOM is just the latest suite to start picking it up, and so that will rapidly be delivered over the next few releases itself. Okay, and then if I come, this is the last new feature I'll speak about is change plans. This is clearly on the network automation side, but we're also providing this in NOM, not surprisingly. And change plans, think of this as an evolution of the command script feature if you're familiar with that, right? This is our feature for automating the deployment of configuration changes. And the evolution is instead of just deploying the configuration change with you having to figure out, is it really the right time to deploy this change? Is there something else happening on the network? Am I really deploying this to the right set of devices? After I'm done, was it successful? And by successful, I mean more than just was the syntax successful. What I mean is, did the change actually result in the outcome that I expected before I started, right? I'm making this change for some purpose. Was that purpose satisfied? That's what change plans are all about. And so on the screen here, you can see the ability to now define conditions that have to be met both before and or afterwards for NA to automatically, or the suite, to automatically determine, can I proceed with the change or not, right? If these conditions aren't met, abort the change. If the conditions are met, proceed with the change. That's like normal command script behavior. And then after the change is done, are whatever other conditions that need to be met, are those satisfied? And if those post-change conditions are satisfied, then great, I mark it as success. If they're not satisfied, what should I do? Well, I can just warn the user, or I could have defined a rollback instructions, right? What's the rollback commands to undo this change essentially if the outcome was not met, right? Whatever your output conditions, they were not satisfied. So now this is all self-contained. This is taking a variety of capabilities that NA could already do and combining them into a new feature called change plans. And so this results in a much more accurate and efficient way to deploy changes, and a way that more accurately matches customer change process. Okay, so with that, let me get to the next poll. Rocky, let's put this up here. You know, having talked about all these capabilities, which new capability is the most interesting to you? Just kind of curious, you know, what resonated the most with you, what you see as the biggest benefit in your environment. So that could span everything I just spoke about, the dashboards, change correlated performance views, ACI monitoring, the containerization efforts, or the change plans.
So please take a moment to answer the question and select which of the capabilities is the most interesting to you. Numbers are rolling in. You know, we're seeing a lot, probably the leading contenders right now are containerized deployment as the number one most interesting component, and then the change correlated performance views. And then right behind that is the executive dashboard. And we're seeing some interest in both the Cisco ACI monitoring and some change plans, but you know, right now the leading contender is the change correlation performance view, followed by executive dashboards and containerized deployment. They're all kind of neck and neck. Those are the three biggies as far as this particular poll.
Excellent. Thanks, Rocky. I appreciate that. And that's great. That's great feedback, right? That helps us. We continually want to ask those questions so that we understand, are we providing value? Are we hitting the mark or not, right? And where should we invest? So I appreciate that input. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to John to talk about packaging of the suite.
Great. Thank you very much, Brian. Very, very interesting to see the interest on containerized deployment. We really strongly believe that that's the wave of the future. And with the NOM Express being our first containerized package, we think that would be a great opportunity for some of you to give it a try and roll it out in your test environments initially. Okay, so let's talk about packaging. So we're going to have 3 levels of packaging for network operations management. And this is kind of a summary, and I'll go into some of the details here in just a bit. But in general, NOM Express has the monitoring, the configuration backup, and the performance capabilities that were previously available in the NMI Performance SPI. So all of those available within the NOM Express. With NOM Premium, we add in QA and traffic, which was previously only available in the NMI Premium or Advanced. We have provisioning there and the advanced reporting. So when you talk about Ops Reporter or business value dashboards, that's part of that NOM Premium solution. And then finally, NOM Ultimate. So that adds in the compliance and advanced monitoring services like MPLS and delivers the full set of capabilities that we had previously found in the ultimate versions of network automation and NMI. So some of the growth opportunities, a lot of folks out there on NMI standard. We believe that the next logical step for you is moving to NOM Express. That adds the capability of adds in the configuration data. And so troubleshooting all of a sudden becomes much, much more effective. And then if you're on NMI Advanced or Premium, we believe that the next step there is for NOM Premium. So, and then I would say that if you are on the full version of network automation, then the next step for you would be NOM Ultimate. So we'll have a poll later on to talk to you about which version or package you think is most appropriate for you. So let's get in a little detail here. And what we're talking about here is NMI Standard as compared to NOM Express and NOM Premium. So NMI Standard really has the basic capabilities of monitoring: discovery, topology, fault, and availability. It doesn't have any performance, any of that solution. That's where NOM Express really takes you to the next level. NOM delivers the performance and health dashboards that you would have previously had to go to NMI Premium to get. Adds in the device configuration backup and change history from network automation. It includes that scalable architecture, virtualization, non-production licenses, and support for IPv6, and then has some of the capabilities for high availability, including router redundancy and port aggregation. And then NMI Standard, if you wanted to step all the way up to NOM Premium, you would add in the quality of service performance monitoring, network traffic performance monitoring. It would give you the capability to use to do device OS upgrades and configuration automation, and then finally network orchestration and workflow content. But we believe the real logical step for if you're on NMI, you're primarily just using it for monitoring, is to step up to a NOM Express. And here's some of the benefits that are included there. We talked to most of those. I won't spend much time with them, but they'll be included in the presentation that you'll have a download link for after this meeting. Okay, and then the next step is if you're on NMI Premium, and what do you do then? So NMI Premium would already include the performance SPI, right? And so you'd already have that capability. So if we look at what we include there, basic monitoring, performance and health dashboards, you have that scalable architecture. If you're on non-premium, if you're on if you're on NMI premium, if you're on NMI advanced, an older license version, then you wouldn't have access to these items or the high availability. So what you get when you step up to non-premium is really all the goodness that was included with network automation, with the exception of automated compliance. So non-premium adds in the traffic performance monitoring, the device OS upgrades and configuration automation, which is key to maintaining your network in this time of rapid OS updates and things like that. It would get you access to BVD and the content that's included in there, including the risk dashboards and operational dashboards that would be delivered there. And this is essential because, as network management professionals, one of the things that we often do is just have to defend the network that it's not the problem. Now you'd be able to present that using those executive dashboards to executive levels to say, here's the status of the network. And if the network's having problems, it'll show it to them as well. But really, you're going to be able to maintain that network performance view in a very solid manner. So, and then finally, if you compare it to non-ultimate, that's where we add in the advanced services monitoring. So if you're doing that, the device policy creation and security content subscription, and building these policies is really essential if you want to have automated remediation in terms of new devices coming on the network and making sure that they're meeting your security or, standards or external security standards. Okay, and here's the detail behind that, and once again, for your review and consideration. So, as you look out and to your needs, and Rocky, here's our next our poll question: which of these NOM packages would best fit your organization? Are you looking to move from NMI to NOM Express? Would you like to step up to premium, or is ultimate really because you're already using network automation in its full manner? Is that really your next step?
So, John, are you asking, is this a wish list kind of thing, or do they plan to go this route? Because I think everybody's wishing that they could have the NOM ultimate.
Yeah, and I guess it's less of a wish list and more of, okay, this is where we would probably move to.
Yeah, I would say that a good 80% want to go to ultimate, and there's about probably 15-20% that are undecided at this point. That's still maintaining as we're.
Yep, it looks refreshing. Like the target is non-ultimate. Well, there you go, Brian.
Yes,
non-ultimate is where we need to go to.
Sounds good.
Yeah, it's great input. Thank you. Okay, gang. Well, it's time to wrap it up. Let's really just wrap things up. Let's talk about bringing it all together here. Hey, the three things that Brian mentioned: SDN, security, and unified management. All of these are really key to your success, and these are what we focus on. And this is what the analysts have reiterated, that these are the things you want to focus on. For example, on SDN, Brian had an impressive list of our customers that are already deploying SDN, and in the survey or the research that we did recently, nearly 2/3 of companies are already deploying or have deployed SDN in their environment. So SDN's here. We need to think about how to support that. Security, NOM really leads the industry in having a network management product that can automatically mediate security issues in your network. And that is a good thing for you guys. So we want to make sure that we're continuing to innovate in that area. And then finally, unified management. It used to be that network was really focused on, or network management was really focused on performance. And that's changing, right? It's this broad level of management across the previously, kind of functional silos of management that need to be automated and handled in as a single team. So, and the great news is that network operations management is truly leading the industry in all of these segments in terms of being able to support SDN and normalize that within your environment, being able to meet the security requirements and deliver very much a team experience for management of your network. So the 3 papers that we have coming to you, you can write down the links there. But first one is a white paper from ENA that talks about how we support SDN and network virtualization in both engineering and operations. So very much right down the pipe there for what we're doing. This really key piece of research from Gartner, once again, this is really a big change for what we've seen in the industry. Previously, even Gartner really focused only on the performance side of network management. And now they've changed their kind of input and view and said, hey, you have to be able to handle both monitoring and automation within the same teams in order to get to the next level, what they call network operations 2.0. And then what we're just releasing is our primary research survey. We worked with a company called Dimensional Research to do this. We polled 300 industry professionals and asked them what is going on in SDN in their environments and how do they want it to manage. And some of the really key points there, we talked about how many are actively deploying. 79% confirmed network management solutions must manage both SDNs and traditional networks. So nobody wants to do the swivel chair management where you go from your SDN management to your traditional management console. They want to manage it all within the same solution, and that's what we're delivering with network operations management. So grab this to find out what your peers are doing and to see where you are in that curve. And then finally, 2 really important events. We have ICOM Summit in Dallas, Texas, February 5th through the 7th, and Micro Focus Universe 2018 in Monaco, so in the south of France. Both of these are going to be outstanding events where we have multiple customers that are presenting around network operations management and cross-suite, and you'll be able to meet with those customers, find out what the problems they're having, what their solutions are, and compare that with your own, and also meet with the product managers like Brian and Pete and Camilo from our team who can give you the insight you need to work with our network management products. And then finally, for more information, you can always go to our website microfocus.com/network management. In operations management is a good fit for you. Talk to your account exec, and we have a really unique customer appreciation program where we can help you move to the next level from your existing point products, which I think everyone would agree would be a great thing. So, upcoming Vivid webinars.
Okay. Sure. Again, thanks to John and Brian for sponsoring a webinar through Vivid and to bring this information to us. So if you're a Vivid member, you get these notices. So in the ITOM space, as well as some of the testing areas, there's some webinars coming up. One on UFT, another one on PPM, and our SIG talk in the testing area. And as your user group for 25 years now, especially starting out with what we called OpenView with NNM and OM, we've got this new series called SIG Talks, and these are practitioner-led 12 to 18-minute discussions about what you're doing, some little tips or tricks or some recent upgrade or some things you've learned that you want to share with the rest of the community that we'll be running. And I'm in charge of this program for the ITOM side. So if you're looking for some exposure about some of the things that you're doing that you want to share with the rest of the network management community, I'd love to hear them. We're scheduling these things every month in various ITOM spaces. So reach out to me if you'd like to present or know someone that would like to present something related maybe to what we've learned here today with what's happening with NOM and the evolution of NOM. Maybe you've got some experience using the technology. That would be outstanding. So let's see if there's anything else here. There'll be a little survey at the end of this thing, so feel free to fill that out so that we can continue to bring you the best content possible. And I think the survey is coming up as we speak. And I want to thank everyone for attending today. Seems like it's tougher and tougher to get people to spend the time. So again, we really appreciate it, and just great content from John and Brian. So with that, we'll let you go. Thank you, everyone.